Guitar tips, just the tips, just for you. Guitar tips. Hello and welcome to Guitar Tips. My name is Adam Levy. This is my video blog series. I often tape these from my studio location. Here I am at home in my little house in northeast Los Angeles. I mentioned last week I'm doing a new series within the series, so I don't know when you'll be watching this. I don't know if you're going to start from the beginning of this series, which is the ABCs of Guitar Tips, or somewhere else, but if you're starting here, just a brief explainer. I have this series, it's called Guitar Tips. I've done 150 something episodes, took a break for a while. I'm rebooting it with this mini series within the series, which will be 26 episodes long, as the alphabet is long. Last week was A. What was A? Oh, it was about alternate tunings, so I hope you'll check that out. This episode is B, and we're going to talk about bending in tune. And I'm going to show you two apps that I use to help me bend in tune. And believe it or not, neither of them is a tuner. And then I also am going to give you some exercises that I use to practice bending in tune. Why? Why would you want to bend in tune? Well, because it's really, I think it's the thing that makes the difference between a really good guitar player and a really great guitar player. As soon as they start bending, you can hear whether that's something that they have spent time on and care about and are invested in. It doesn't always mean that if you were looking at a tuner, the note you bend to is right up the middle. There's ways to be expressive that are at times a little flat or a little sharp. So, it's not about some kind of, always being right on the dot, but it's just about being in control and not having intonation be an afterthought. That's really the main idea here. So first I want to talk about the two apps that I use. Again, neither is a tuner, though if you did want to bend and keep your eye on a tuner, that's not a bad idea, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. One of the apps that I use is called the iShruti. A Shruti box is something that's often used in Indian music. It's a drone. Even if you don't know anything about Indian music, you've probably heard this sound before. It's just roots and fifths. Right now I'm on A, so you're hearing some A's and some E's. This is F, so you're hearing F and C. It looks like this. I don't know if you can see that, but that's what it looks like. So you choose your key, or your pedal tone anyway, and then there's a little volume slider on the bottom. So that's the first app I use. And let's go back to A. Hope you can hear that all right. So before we get to the second app, I'll just spend a little time bending with this drone. So we're in A. And I might start by just doing some half-step bends into A. And try to just really, I'll crank it up so you can hear it, really get to where the note almost dissolves and becomes one with the drone. Your note becomes one with the drone. You can do it with a little bit of vibrato, but make sure the note's in tune before you start wiggling. And then let's try a whole step bend into the A. So I was bending G sharp up to A, now I'm going to bend G up to A. And you could do that on different strings. I'm doing it just now just on the B string, but you could do it on any bendable string. You could do it even in a lower octave, which is something that a lot of people don't work on. So that could sound like this. Here's the half step bend. And now here's a whole step bend. It's hard. I use heavy strings. Maybe you do too. That's a tough one. But that sounds pretty good. So that's a whole step. Half step is here. You do the same thing over here. And then a whole step. And you could do it up here. Here's whole step. And if you're not sure, try recording yourself as you do this and then listen back. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, it's not always clear. And so listen to yourself. Listen to a recording of yourself bending and decide what's working and what might need a little more practice time. Okay? So that's one app that I use. And then the other app is actually not anything to do with pitch, but is just to do with time, because I like to practice playing stuff in time, including bends. So this is an app that I use that's called TimeGuru. Looks like that. It's just kind of a typical metronome. You could use whatever metronome app that you like, and that would be fine. So now if we combine those two, let me pick another key just so we don't get bored of A. So now I've got some time involved. So now we're in G. And I'll see what I can do here. So half steps in G. Also, bend past it and come back down. So that's half step, and here's whole step. And again, you'd want to do that on different strings, in different octaves, and so on. So, if you want to use a drum loop to do that with, you can. I like using the iShruti rather than like backing tracks, because it's just a very pure, simple sound, and also it doesn't pull towards major or minor, which is going to be really useful for the next exercises that we do. You could do a similar thing with a looper pedal if you have a ditto or something like that. I sometimes will create some kind of drone for myself using a ditto, or whatever looper pedal that you happen to have handy. Just checking to make sure we're still in tune-ish. Okay, so now you've practiced the basic stuff, half steps and whole steps. That's the main thing. Now I would encourage you to get away from just the tonic note that we're hearing droned and practice some other stuff that's around that note, but not just that note. So one thing I'll do is I'll practice major pentatonic sounds. So let's go to, we'll pick up the tempo a little bit. This is 66, and we'll go to D as our drone. So I'm going to do major pentatonic, D major pentatonic, and then we'll do D minor pentatonic. So here's D major pentatonic. Now from B up here, we need to bend a minor third up to the next note, so let's try that. And then D is a whole step bend up to E. That's the next note higher in the D major pentatonic scale. And I've got a bit of reverb on. If you want to really focus, you could not use reverb. So here's a dry sound. Again, D major pentatonic. This pretty much all on the B string. Of course, you could move it to any strings that you like. Again, that's a minor third bend because I'm to get to the next note. That's D up to F. So a little sharp. I'm doing this pretty freestyle, but if you want a more organized approach, you could just pick the 5 pentatonic boxes, if you know those, and work out all of the bends in those boxes. I tend to work up and down the neck more. You can take whichever approach makes the most sense for you, but the big idea would be cover all of the strings, cover the whole neck, as much of it as you can. So here's some low down bends on D minor. And here's some high up bends on D major. And if you find yourself overshooting or undershooting a note, spend some time there, work it out, figure out what you're doing, and see if you can get it right in the zone where you want it. So that's so far we've done half steps and whole steps, and then we've done major pentatonic and minor pentatonic. The next thing I would do is work out the major scale modes. So what are the 7 modes you can play with D? There's D Ionian, which is just a D major scale, so that could be something like this. Then there's D Dorian, which is, it's like D major, but it has a minor third and a minor 7 or a flatted 7. So D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. And then D Phrygian, which is D, E flat, F, G, A, B flat, C, and D. It's essentially the notes of a B flat major scale, but thinking of D as the tonic. And there's D Lydian, which is D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D. There's D Mixolydian, which is D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C natural. Basically the notes of the G major scale, but thinking of D as the tonic. Hope I'm not getting too far afield here. Okay. The next one is D Aeolian, and that has D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C, D. It's also sometimes called the D natural minor scale. Same notes as F major, so it's got a B flat in it. So let's explore that. There's a lot of room in there to find the note that sounds sweet to your ears. What if we bend D up to E here, and then up to F? Try to find the E and the F on the same bend. Alright, that's something for me to work on. And then the last mode of the major scales is the Locrian mode. D Locrian, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D. It's basically an E flat major scale starting on D. So let's see if we can make that work. Make sure that you use all of your fingers when you bend. Practice bending notes off of your pinky, off of your ring finger, off of your middle finger, and your index finger. You should be able to bend a whole step or a half step off of any of those. The higher fingers, you can always support them with your other fingers, but you want to be able to do those. So here's B flat up to C with the pinky. Here's B flat up to C with the ring. Middle. And then index. So you want to be able to do that with all of your fingers, right? And I'm going to stop these now. Stop all the droney stuff and the timekeeping. So what we did there, again, just to review, half steps and whole steps into the note, just the one note. So if you're droning on A, then we're going to bend G sharp up to A, and we'll bend G that's a half step. Bend G natural up to A, that's a whole step. Then keeping the drone, you would do all of the major and minor pentatonic. So if we're droning A, you would do A major pentatonic all over the fingerboard, and A minor pentatonic all over the fingerboard, and then all of the bends that exist within those. Pentatonic scales are made up of whole steps and minor thirds. Those are the intervals you have, so there's a lot of opportunity to practice whole step bends and minor third bends as you move around different positions. Then in the last bit, we were playing off of a D drone, and I went through the 7 modes that you can have on D. What that means is, another way to think of it is, D is one of the notes of 7 different major scales. So D is in D major, it's the 1. D is in C major, it's the 2. And C major and D Dorian have the same notes, we just think about them a little bit differently. D is the 3rd note of a B flat scale, that's also D Phrygian. D is the 4th note of an A major scale. So that would be D Lydian or A major. D is the 5th note of G major, so that gives us D Mixolydian or G major. D is the 6th note of F, so F major or D Aeolian or D natural minor. D is the 7th note of the E flat scale, so that's E flat major or D Locrian. So that's how we got all those modes when we had the D drone going. Of course, there's other types of scales besides the major scale that D could be part of. D could be any of the 7 notes in a melodic minor scale. D could be any of the 7 notes in a harmonic minor scale. I'm counting, but I really don't have enough fingers to list all of the scales that D could be part of. It could be part of whole tone scales, it could be part of diminished scales, it could be part of scales that you invent. Try all of the possible ways that you could get around on the fingerboard that would allow you to work on your half-step bends, whole-step bends, minor third bends, and any combination, and maybe farther bends if your strings are light enough or your fingers are strong enough. So there you go. That's how I work on bending in tune, and that's how I think you should work on bending in tune. It's something we can all work on at whatever level you're at. Once more, this is the ABCs of Guitar Tips. It's a new series within the Guitar Tips series. From here, you could always go back and watch some of the earlier tips, or if you want to get into some more detailed lessons and stuff that also includes PDFs and MP3s and playlists and private lessons and all kinds of other stuff. There's a lot of other assets that are available at Guitar Tips Pro. So I'll include a link down below. Make sure you check that out. That's guitartipspro.com. Here in Los Angeles, for Guitar Tips and Guitar Tips Pro, I'm Adam Levy. Stay tuned and take good care.